Welcome back to another episode of the Course Creation Incubator. I'm Gina Onativia, your host, your moderator, your digital strategist, here to get you excited about your course creation and build the business that you really want, that you've always dreamed of. And I wanted to come back to something I started a couple of episodes ago, which is list building and growing your audience and giving you some tools that you can use right now that don't cost a lot of money. So far, we talked about podcast pitching back in episode 71 with Christina Lankowski. She was amazing. Then we talked about the power of LinkedIn with Adrian Weimer and really optimizing that platform. Another piece that I want to bring to the table, which is kind of near and dear to my heart, is media pitching and putting yourself out there for PR opportunities. Now, a long time ago, I used to be in media. Now, I understand, I used to understand the nuances of media and what they're really looking for in terms of stories and trends. I know how valuable it could be to get published. In fact, I used to be an editor, so I was the one getting pitched to. And I wanted to bring on someone who really knows the ins and outs of media and public relations, and that's Jen Berson, who I know from my days back working on Amy Porterfield's podcast. Now, I used to help write content for Ames's podcast, and I would also work on interviewing guests. And I helped Ames develop this incredible vetting system where I would interview the guests in advance and ask them questions. Then I would outline the episode and run the outline and questions by the guest. And Jen was one of those fantastic guests. And I'll never forget, she sent a lovely thank you note and this incredible package of skincare that I use to this day. I was really touched by that. And I thought, this lady knows what she's doing. She knows how to take care of people. And a friendship came from that. We've collaborated on several projects. We've hung out in events. And I thought, let's bring her on the podcast because she has so much great information to share. Who better to teach us about the world of PR? So Jen is the president and founder of Generation PR, which is an award-winning public relations and creative studio. She has multiple products. She's got her hands in consulting and in the student world, just like I do. So I love that unique perspective that she brings to PR. She always brings the goods, so let's bring her on. Jen, welcome to the podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Thanks, Gina. I'm so happy to catch up with you. It's been far too long.
Way too long.
Good to see you.
Definitely. I was just talking about that in the intro. And I'm glad we get this opportunity to talk about the value of PR because I feel like some of my course creation audience might be prioritizing other activities. Now, but first and foremost, talk to us about the many benefits of public relations, of PR.
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? I mean, for your audience, there's so much value in having the media validate their expertise. So when they're quoted in the media as a go-to authority in their space, it just automatically gives them credibility and gives their ideas and what they're sharing validity. And obviously the media allows them to borrow a wider audience, especially when they're laser focused on who their ideal customer avatar is, which I know that they would already have done that exercise working with you.
Yep.
So when they figure out who they're trying to reach, they can figure out what media outlets, what podcasts, what digital media outlets and websites their audience is likely to be reading, and they can target those. So there's some outlets that will help build credibility, and some that will just be a little bit smaller maybe, but will allow them to get right in front of their ideal customer. And now they're borrowing that media outlet's audience to connect in a wider way, and they can share their personality and share their ideas in a way that will attract their audience to them. But, there's just so much value to PR, and it's really a great way to introduce yourself to your target audience and entice them to want to learn more. And obviously, it's so fantastic for list building.
Yes, of course. And that's why this is what we've been talking about with the Build Your Audience series and different ways to do just that, to list build, even though you're just starting out. And by the way, I might have some listeners who say, well, I am just starting out and I might not be right for opportunities. Like, I'm too small. Like, how do I put myself out there to different outlets? Can I still do that if I'm small?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, how are you going to become big unless you're
Gotta start
able?
somewhere.
It's got to start somewhere. And there might be people that are just starting out in terms of their online presence, but they have a history of doing the thing that they're now coaching or helping other people accomplish. And so you're not just, you didn't just fall off a turnip cart. You've been around. What really matters is with media, you have to reach the right editor or the right outlet at the right time with the right idea. So it's timeliness and relevance, and it has to be really targeted. So the pitch won't always look the same for every outlet. You have to tailor it a little bit. But when you're just starting out, you know what you would want to put yourself out there for. You know what you're trying to become known for. You've probably developed a unique process or an approach, or you've had results on your own, and now you're trying to teach others how to do that. Where's the story there? Wherever you can pull out something that's newsworthy and inspiring or give somebody a step-by-step how-to, the credibility is the fact that you are sharing your ideas that have an impact and a result, or that you've had a transformation yourself. It's all the same reasons that you probably share with your audience, that they're credible enough to be putting themselves out there as a coach or as putting together a program to teach others. That's the same credibility the media would be looking for. It's what's your approach? What's your process? What are the steps you share? What has been your own transformation, or what other transformations have you guided people through? And if you share inspiring content, or like step-by-step how-to content, or you want to comment on something that's timely and relevant right now, like a trend that's kind of all over the place. We kind of call that newsjacking, something that's in the news a lot and you want to comment on it because that's squarely in your wheelhouse. That allows you to start to become thought of and considered by the media for other opportunities. It tends to snowball. So even if you're just starting out, it's a great way to get that cumulative effect going. Maybe start with smaller outlets and then work your way up to the Today Show, work your way up to a national magazine. There's a lot of ways to kind of go about using the media to build that presence and credibility so that your members don't feel like they're not qualified.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack here. So I love what you're saying. You got to find the right editor with the right time, with the right idea. And I know, listen, media pitching, we could spend like a freaking whole day on that, right? Or a week or a month on that. I wonder if you can give me some beginning steps. Like we recently did a podcast pitching episode where Christina walked through, say, picking 5 podcasts a month. She said try to get booked on 2 a month, right? So she's like 2 a month would be huge, right? And I'm like, I agreed with her. So you said maybe try the smaller outlets first. Like, can you give us a few small steps that we can take to get going?
Yeah. It always comes to mind when I'm reading something that really resonates with me. It's like, what is the media that I'm consuming that I feel really connected to? And I think, oh, I could have commented on that, or they're featuring somebody that I'm very familiar with and our philosophies align, and I could have contributed to that as well. It's like, take note of that. Take note of the publication and take note of the editor or the author or the journalist that's covering that. And, you're not going to pitch them the exact same thing, but you can use that article or that interview that you heard on their show as a lead-in, because you want to clearly demonstrate this is not spray and pray. I didn't write this pitch and send it to 500 people hoping that one would get back to me. This is for you and only for you. I didn't send this to all these other people, just a blanket email. But I listened to this episode with Gina. She was so insightful. I love her Post-it method. I started to use that, to help develop my latest program. And that was something that I really found beneficial from your podcast. And so you're showing that person, oh, they listen and they're familiar with my content. They're familiar with what we cover. So what they're going to say next probably is something I should pay attention to, because it's probably going to be relevant for me. So pitching one-off pitches, so it's targeted and you have an idea of what you're trying to, help them with. It's like, what's the value that you're sharing? What value can you provide to that editor or podcaster and their readers and their audience? What is that value? So in order to start, I would say hone in on 3. Just focus on 3. Don't overwhelm yourself. If you start to think of the volume of opportunities out there, it's like you just get into analysis paralysis. Focus on 3, make a little list and just go deep. Try to figure out what they're talking about there, what regular features they have that you might be a fit for, and just kind of creep and just look around and see what they're up to. And start to get a sense of like, okay, I think that I could really add some value here. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to share in a very succinct way, very short and sweet and to the point, not like my answer right now, but in general, an email, succinct and targeted, and give them like 2 or 3 bullet points of something you can talk about. What idea do you have for them? What value can you share with their readers? And then just give it in a bullet point and then have a strong call to action at the end. How about I write that up for you for your consideration? Or next step would be to, if you confirm you're interested, I can jump on the phone and, share my transformation with you or share how I did it. Make it really, really simple and obvious what the next step is. And focus on those 3. And you'll see that you start to build some momentum with 1 or 2. And that gives you the confidence that you are sharing something that people are interested in. And you can also hone in on your message before you start pitching broad and you go out to a lot of outlets. You can test your message, your idea, and see what resonates. What you think is kind of interesting may not be the thing that the media latches onto. You might say, well, this is what I want people to come to me for. And you'll share one little tidbit and they'll want to know about that. And so you'll say, oh, okay, let's pivot the strategy. So now you haven't pitched your top 50 outlets with something that isn't as interesting as this little nuanced piece that really resonates. So it's a good way to test it and kind of see what people are interested in.
Okay, so good. Okay, love this idea of the specific call to action and saying like, okay, I'll write that up for you, or you can interview me, or, whatever is easiest for them, right? So, and reaching out and making it convenient. This idea about confidence too, Jen, I know you just did a podcast on this, and I think so much is tied into that, right? That we don't have the confidence to put ourselves out there. We feel like we're not the experts. Why would somebody want to interview me, right? And I love this idea of like building that up and booking one. And then the last piece that really resonated is see what resonates, right? And the message, because a lot of times we might feel like this is the messaging that's going to hit, but to your point, they might be looking for something else, right? So like I was a journalist 100,000 years ago and back in the dark ages, and we're always looking for stories. We're always looking for, I love that you call it newsjacking, right?
It's not my term, but it's a term that is, and it makes a lot of sense. It's like, for sure, never newsjack any kind of tragedy or anything like that.
Right.
But if there's something that you can lend your voice and your expertise to, why not? And when you see your competitors or your heroes in the media, I gotta say, it's very rare that a media outlet comes to you. You have to pitch them.
Yes.
They don't know about you. They probably didn't know about your competitors. Your competitors reached out and said, hi, I'm here and I could share information about this, or here's my story. Do you want to cover it? It's very, very rare that a media outlet will reach out to somebody directly. And so when you look at other people being featured in the media, you have to know they started from somewhere and they probably pitched themselves for that opportunity.
Right. They took action.
Yeah. And you can't get a yes if you don't try.
That's right. And put yourself out there. And I
Yes.
also know that once you do become a source for someone, they come back,
Yes,
right?
that's
So
exactly
you're
right.
top of mind for them for
Yep.
other stories and other pieces.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you're a source, and we look at it too, like from our agency side, when we're really easy to work with and we meet their deadlines and we have all of our assets ready and
Yep.
we're just like easy breezy, no problem. We're never going to hold you back. We're going to get you everything you ask for. You're not going to chase us down. That's the way to become a trusted source that gets featured multiple times, because that journalist knows they can go to you and you're on it. You'll get them what they need in a timely manner, and that leads to a lot more and bigger opportunities.
Okay, love that. That's amazing. So we're talking about list building, right? And I know this media exposure is a form of list building. They'll of course go to your website and look at your lead magnet, things like that. I'm just curious. Do you have other list building strategies that you like to use or you use with your clients and
Well,
students?
yeah. So, I mean, I have two sides of my business. I have an
Yes.
agency, and in my agency, my PR agency, we represent brands. So typically, their marketing teams will do their list building. Thank God I don't have to touch their funnels. Oh my God, that would be a nightmare. I'm so glad. But we have our own different lead magnets and things going for our business. On the coaching side of my business, I help PR professionals really hone their skills,
Yep.
and then I teach them how to run an agency. So, it's really about figuring out where they are in their journey and having, for us, it's like a very clear ascension path, and then trying to hit people where they are in different stages of their journey and offering things that will appeal to them at that stage. So somebody who's just learning PR as a service probably is not ready to get my agency framework, because
No.
you
Right.
know they're
Yeah.
not there yet. So we will have something very introductory to kind of help them figure out that this is something they can do, or show them what the opportunity is, and then we're promoting that. We do it topic driven, let's say. So if I do my sort of thing that is my foundation of all of our content is I do a weekly Facebook Live. In my Facebook group, I have a Facebook group for PR professionals, about 3,500 people worldwide. And it's not big, but it's the right people. I mean, they are,
Yeah.
yeah, really, really targeted. And I got people that come every single week and listen. And, depending on the topic, we will have a lead magnet that's relevant for that topic. And we don't have a ton. There's probably 4 or 5 going right now, but the great news is that it helps to segment them the right way,
Yep.
bring them in at the right place, and then sort of walk them through a journey. And so we see people go through, get on our list, and then get our free content, and then buy our lower priced offer, join our membership, and then buy our agency framework, our agency accelerator. So it's like that customer journey, we know it works. And we're building the list in a way where we can meaningfully segment them, and we can reach them where they are and offer them things that will resonate at that stage of their career, wherever they are in their career.
Okay, love that. I love that strategy also. And I think with your Facebook group, you're right. Better to have quality leads, right? Real people who are engaging versus huge numbers, hundreds of thousands of people in there.
It's just hard for me to find my people. I'm like looking for
Your
PR
niche,
professionals,
Yeah.
and we're running ads, and
yeah.
it's not easy, but we're finding the right people, and then a lot of it is word of mouth. And so for me, then we take that weekly Facebook Live content and then we repurpose it. So you mentioned the podcast. Really, I'm repurposing those lives, or I re-record the same material.
Yeah.
And then we put it on YouTube and we run ads against it. And, not everything performs exceptionally well at all times, but it's like a simple process where we have now nailed down our repurposing strategy. And then in terms of building a list, I mean, anytime you can co-opt an audience, that's not yours, and share your expertise on a trusted, collaborator's podcast or an article that you've written for them, and then people see you there, and you're also then seen as an authority right away. and then you offer what you offer, they'll come over to your list, and then now you can obviously stay connected to them. So it's another thing we do.
I love that. And as we continue to grow, so you mentioned the agency. Not everyone, not all of us can afford your amazing agency right now, right? But if we were going to put some dollars towards PR, where do you think is the great place to start?
Dollars towards PR.
Would it be hiring a virtual assistant to do some research for us in terms of outlets?
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. So, we look at it like true PR, getting articles based on a pitch where they're coming to you for your expertise and sharing your ideas. We call that earned media. It's basically like you're not paying for it. Mm-hmm. It's not your own social media channels. It's not your blog. It is your, getting featured for no pay. And that is true earned media. So in order to get that, it takes a lot of time and effort from someone like me, crafting pitches, building media lists, sending pitches out. And I mean, that I started with a whole program geared towards teaching people how to do their own PR.
Right.
And we pivoted to support the PR community because that's who was coming to me. Because the question I got more than anything was like, how did you go from being an attorney to starting your own law firm? It wasn't can you teach me how to do PR? It was like, how did you start a PR
How did you start the agency and how did you grow the agency? Those were the questions I remember that you were getting, right? And you pivoted.
So it was a little bit like, but what about this other thing I built and it's really good? Why don't you want to know about that? And so we've actually pivoted that content and we've geared it towards agency owners now. But the problem with that program at the time was convincing people to spend the time to actually pitch the media and first go through the content and say, okay, this is what I have to do. It was a non-essential function in their business.
Right. Exactly right. It was not a priority.
Wasn't a priority. Yeah. And I think we did a good job of convincing them that it was needed.
Yeah.
And then we also said, well, you can have a virtual assistant go through it. I think that, now there's a number of fantastic PR programs out there for less than $2,000. You can give your virtual assistant or somebody on your team that's hourly, buy the program for them, let them go through it. And then we actually even sell media lists, like cheap, because I just didn't want that to hold people back. So there's ways to procure inexpensive media contacts and just have them pitch 10 hours a week, max, 5 hours a week.
Yep.
Pitch, follow up, and they can use that time to craft a pitch for you. You can review it and make sure that you like how it sounds, that it adequately reflects you and your personality and all of that. And it is a great way to have somebody help get you out there. Doesn't cost a ton. You don't need a big PR firm to get the ball rolling on this at all. That was the premise of Press Success. My first program was like, you don't need me. I will tell you exactly how we're doing it. Just take it, do it in your business and get results. But it was just too time consuming. So if you can get a virtual assistant to take any of these fantastic PR programs, we even have a membership called the Pitch Lab. With 2 months, you'll have the entire framework we were selling in Press Success for $2,000, and it's literally under $200 for 2 months of access. So
great.
It's very cost effective now, and you'll learn how agencies pitch, how to find target pitch angles. So if somebody has limited funds, and I would also assume they have limited time, they can have a team member do the heavy lifting, build those media lists, research different outlets, and just keep it really small and simple so that you don't become overwhelmed, and go deep, like keep at it, find someone new at those outlets until something lands, and then, kind of build off of the momentum and the things that resonated most.
That's great. Okay. Just the idea of starting small. And then Jen, can I throw a wild card at you? What do you think about these opportunities to pay to play?
So it depends what they are. Okay. There's a couple that we're seeing a lot of now. The first being like the councils, like the Forbes Council or the Fast Company Council. And they're a couple $1,000s a year. They say you have to apply. I think it could it could be a cost-effective way to get business credibility through some of these outlets where you're writing, basically you are paying them for the opportunity for you to write content on their site.
Okay.
So the problem is that real journalists hate this because their whole job is to get paid to write content. And now you're literally paying for the opportunity to give them free content. But for a couple $1,000s a year, if you laser in on one that, you feel would be a great way to establish authority and connect with your target audience, that might be a good way to go about it. But you're still going to have to write content and, contribute. There are these other opportunities that are these shady pay to plays. And it's so odd. I get hit up in my DM on Instagram all the time.
Is it the top 20, I get hit up top 20 course creation coaches?
Email, ones to watch in.
Yes.
And it's a magazine title that sounds kind of legit. And then you're like, why have I heard of this? And they're like, no, I've never heard of this because it's not anything real. It's like a made up, not legit.
It's an ad. It's an advertorial.
That's exactly right, Gina. It's like people do not realize that. And if it is a legit publication, like maybe they'll say ABC News. It is some syndicated in Des Moines, Iowa, and they'll be like, I was featured on ABC. It's like, no one's going to see that. It's a big nothing burger. So the other way they're doing it is these paid advertorials. So they're buying space and then they're, at wholesale and they're retailing it off to you. And what we have found is that it has a really net negative impact because, first of all, that content is not amplified in any way. It's not promoted on any of these outlets' channels. And if a writer is a contributor and they break their contract with the publication by featuring pay-to-play opportunities, and that publication finds out, they delete their entire channel platform of all their content, and now you've paid for this thing that doesn't exist. It's a broken link on the internet if you feature it on your website. And genuine writers will vet you. So we will work with clients and look to see what they've done. And if they've done some shady stuff, we can't work with them because they're almost blackballed by the media because they'll say, well, this client, paid for this opportunity here and we don't really feature companies like that. It happens a lot with tech companies. They'll sort of pay for coverage or pay for reviews by top outlets. And then the genuine media editors, the gatekeepers are like, nope, don't want to touch it. They're not going to work with them. So the quick Google search that we can do to find that content, the editors, if they're going to give them that valuable real estate, that valuable platform, they're going to vet those opportunities or those, potential clients too and say, shady, so don't do it. There's no value. You can do this yourself. You don't have to pay.
Do the work, right? Like you said, start small and build up from there. And then you'll start to see the momentum and you'll start to see the impact.
Yep.
So that's the road.
Yep. You just have to try. You don't get a yes unless you put yourself out there. And if you don't put yourself out there, then it's the same thing as getting a no. You're just getting nothing. So
put yourself out there. I think that's the theme of today.
Yeah.
So Jen, I just love your fresh perspective and so freaking much about media and PR in this world. So thank you for coming on and sharing that with us. How can we learn more about what you're working on, what you have to offer us?
Anytime you need me, I am here for you. So I think the best way to stay connected is probably through Instagram. I'm at Generation PR with a J. And our content that's focused all on training how to do PR and then how to run an agency is at profitableprpros.com. We actually just won an Inc. Best in Business Award. It's right back there. Thinking like we're a really small company. Why would I even try? And, we were selected for like best in business in the advertising and marketing category, even though we don't really fit in anywhere because it's like a different model, what we're offering. But, we're lucky to make such an impact. And so if you want to see how we could support you with learning how to do PR, we have really cost-effective ways to do it. I have a program called, what's it called? Media Magnet. Is that what it's called? from crickets to crushing it. I can't remember. Really good, easy, bare bones, get through it type program that is super effective for, someone that just wants to get the basics and start landing press.
Awesome. Okay.
Maybe I'll give you a link. Sorry.
Yeah, no, give me a link and I'll include it in the show notes. And by the way, I heard in your podcast that the reason you got that award is you put yourself out there, right? You said, why not? And you went for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what a great example of how we need to go for it.
Yeah. It was just like, you know what? We sort of fit the criteria. And the cool thing for that was all we did was take the testimonials and the transformations that people just organically share with us. Anytime someone posts something, I just clip it and we put it in a file. I literally took all of that and I just put it in a PDF. And it was essentially, don't take our word for it, listen to what our audience has to say. And it was like 50 pages of, like, you can't deny that there's an impact here, and so that was really what I think helped get us seen and in contention for that consideration. And now we're of course getting all the spammy ads pitched to us, but we are having people find us and say, oh, that was so interesting. I found out about you here. Because for the right person, it lands and they're like, I'm interested in learning more about that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, won't take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for being on, Jen. It has been very, very enlightening.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. And if anybody has any questions, just hit me up on DM on Instagram and I'm happy to chat and answer any questions they have.
What did you think of Jen? She's got so much great value add, right? Finding the right editor at the right time with the right idea, or the fact that you don't know what message will stick until you put yourself out there, and that you've got to build the confidence, just like pitching podcasts. So if you check out episode 71, you can learn more about pitching podcasts, and now you know how to pitch media. So where are you going to start? Could you put in a couple of hours a week into your own PR efforts and start to build momentum? Because I want you to put into practice some of the things that Jen talks about in this episode. Check out more about her content in the show notes. And next week, I've got yet another amazing expert to help you grow your business. Until then, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.